outside of them deciding to put the Falcons and the Raiders on Monday Night Football to begin the season, I don't think there was a soul that knew there would be this much commotion around a matchup between two teams that really haven't won a game in 8 weeks.
I don't
But
know.
you have the
I
potential.
disagree.
You have the potential here to watch the end of the Kirk Cousins era. I think we said that against the Vikings, but if they lose to the Raiders, and not only that, the end of the Raheem Morris era, the end of the Terry Fontenot, I think this is the kind of game that I know one and done coaches are rare. Heads can roll because of how embarrassing these last 4 weeks have gone and how an embarrassing capping it off with an 0-5 stretch to the Raiders, who have won 2 games all season. Not only that, but Desmond Ridder is now in Oakland or in Las Vegas and will be quarterbacking this team because of the injury to Aiden O'Connell. So the amount of embarrassment on the line for the Falcons franchise
All-time
here
high.
is at an all-time high. And if I'm Arthur Blank, who just he's been kind of managing this organization, we say it all the time, to avoid this kind of embarrassment, this would be peak embarrassment. And I don't know how heads don't roll, including even possibly Raheem Morris, even though he's only 14 games into his Falcons tenure.
I disagree with you as much as possible. I think the NFL knew exactly what they were doing. They knew that the Cardinals were going to get rid of Ridder and he was going to land in Las Vegas.
It's all
and
part
all
of the script.
These energy.
It's all part of the script.
Somebody in the league office has a third eye that they know these sort of things are going to happen. Not to mention there is a second Monday night game, so I imagine 90% of America's televisions will be on that Monday night game and not ours. But yeah, there's a lot on the line here for the Falcons. And nobody should be surprised when the Falcons go out there and beat up on this team, because the Raiders are a bad football team. They're a bad football team. Desmond Ridder is a bad quarterback. But also, in that same breath, would anybody really be surprised if Atlanta does the most Atlanta thing ever? No, nobody would be surprised, especially in this city. Everybody is kind of, preparing for the worst. They're not even like, we're going to go out there and get this season back on track. We're going to finish the season strong with 4 wins, and we're going to make the postseason. No, everybody's like, oh, gosh, I just hope we don't lose. That's just, that's a hurt dog. That's what we are. And I think, everybody should fully expect Kirk Cousins to get back on track this week, because the Raiders defense sucks and he's beat up on bad defenses. The 4-game losing streak features 4, if not, top 10 defenses. I think the Saints is probably right outside, but the Chargers have a really damn good defense. The Broncos might have the best defense in the league, and the Vikings, obviously, we saw what they've been doing with Brian Flores. So, he's been bad against good defenses, and he's been good against bad defenses, a la the Buccaneers, the Cowboys, and the Raiders are a bad defense. So nobody should be surprised when Kirk Cousins go out there and throws his first touchdown in over a month.
Do you have a prediction there? He's going to throw a touchdown?
I know. It's crazy. Touchdown from Kirk Cousins this week, but I get it. It's just, that PTSD of the Atlanta Falcons are going to Atlanta Falcon this weekend. I will say the embarrassment factor, there's a lot of liability on the line for the Falcons this week.
Yeah, and you think that would make them play their best game, or at least attempt to play their best game. I mean, they have the playoffs on the line. Any hope that they have of the playoffs? I mean, they've got to be playing for Raheem Morris. You think the guys like him. Immediately, that's what we were preached to all offseason. Everyone's going to love this guy, so you think they'd go out there and play for him. They're going out there and play for Kirk Cousins, who, even though everyone is kind of sick and tired of the Kirk Cousins saga in Atlanta and is ready to move on to Michael Penix, there's absolutely no doubt, especially when you hear guys like Drake London. I mean, Drake London 4 weeks ago called Kirk Cousins the best player he's ever played with. So there's no doubt that there's
that's such a low. Listen, Kirk Cousins is better than he's been the past 4 games, but that's an incredibly low.
Here's the thing. There's no doubt that, Kirk Cousins demands the respects and has the respect 100%. Of those guys. So they're going to be playing behind him. So there's a lot for the Falcons to go out there and at least from an effort standpoint, be as good as they possibly can be. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, I mean, you have Antonio Pierce, who could be facing his job. We've seen the Raiders come out even last year when he was an interim head coach, go out and play for Antonio Pierce. And he's not a kind of guy that's going to lay over. This is a Raiders team that has beaten the Ravens, gave the Bucks all. I mean, it's the NFL. They're not just going to roll over. And you have Desmond Ridder, who is now facing his former team. So if anyone gives a crap about Desmond Ridder, there's a lot of motivational factors on both sides. You're traveling across the country to go play in Las Vegas on Monday night. There is going to be pressure that comes with all those factors. So I like you said, as much as I think the Falcons should go out there, dominate this game, keep their playoff hopes alive, keep everybody's jobs in line, there's also this, thing cooking where it's like everything could actually really go wrong. The Raiders could play their best game of the season, and a la you're 6-8. I have no idea what Raheem Morris will say to the press after that game, but I'd be very interested to see it.
The devil works hard.
But the NFL works harder.
The NFL works way harder. Way harder. This is the perfect recipe. And you say the Falcons and their players, and they're playing for Raheem Morris and Kirk Cousins, like you mentioned. How about those Raiders trying to upset the Falcons for Desmond Ridder? I mean, Desmond Ridder doesn't have a lot of cachet in that building. There's no doubt about that. But Desmond Ridder is of that, quarterback, buttoned up, says the right things, does the right things. If anybody can kind of on a 4-game, he's played 4 games on a 4-game sample size, kind of get his team behind it, it's probably Desmond Ridder because he's a good guy, he's a locker room guy. And like you said, they're playing for Antonio Pierce. Now, I did say it on Twitter. I've gotten some very hurtful DMs that I don't think those people would want in public, where I said, call me crazy. I said it earlier in the week. I kind of want the Falcons to lose this game. Storylines, drama, dumpster fire. The dumpster is warm. It's cozy. I don't want to leave it, for the cold of potentially losing in the postseason. I just want more drama. And you can say I'm a bad fan or a fake fan, but, I think if the Falcons were good, we wouldn't know what to do with ourselves. Either win a Super Bowl or entertain me. And it's like a reality TV show. It's trash, but you just can't stop watching it.
I'll say this about that. I mean, obviously, I want the Falcons to win this game and hope to keep their playoffs alive, and whatever hope that us silly fans like to hang on throughout the season. Yeah. when you know the ending of the show is coming and you know exactly how it is going to end, which is the Atlanta Falcons season. So I will say this though: they're not going to break this postseason drought, and they're going to. I want it all to come to an end as it would come to an end, like losing to the Raiders. I want Raheem Morris's job to be in serious question because I think it should be in serious question already. And it's not going to be if you go 8-9 and miss the postseason, but you go 7-10, you go 8-9 with a loss to the Raiders and a 5-game losing streak. We can start having serious conversations about that. Terry Fontenot is another guy I talked about yesterday who I don't believe deserves. I want heads to roll. And staying on this treadmill of mediocrity, it's harder for those heads to roll. Mm-hmm. So I'd like it to explode if it's going to explode. And most importantly, I don't want Kirk Cousins to be the starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons in 2025. And you lose to the Raiders, there's no way this guy is starting in week 16. I will literally get on this show and start screaming for an hour.
Game was over in Minnesota. And
I know, but I'm just saying, you lose to the Raiders, you're now out of the postseason, and you're not already looking at Michael Penix. He's not. We go beyond past the point of nonsensical, which I think we already are.
Well,
but we're going beyond that.
Though I want chaos, and it's probably not a popular take, I'm going to give you what's actually going to happen. The Falcons are going to refine themselves. They're going to beat up on a bad team. The Buccaneers, who play the Chargers, are going to lose to a Chargers team that could quietly compete in the AFC because the AFC is wide open, in my opinion. And we're going to be right back in it. We're going to be tied at the top. Technically not tied. We've got the head-to-head with the Buccaneers, so we'll be 7-7. Buccaneers will be 7-7. We'll have the tiebreaker. We'll be in first place in the NFC South, and everybody will hold hands and sing Kumbaya and act like nothing ever happened over this 4-game losing streak.
I mean, look at the positivity over here from Alex. Where are you going to get that anywhere else? I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, listen.
That's what's going to happen.
As bad as the Falcons have been over this 4-game losing streak, and as frustrating the turnovers have been and the close losses and the mistakes, I mean, you're talking about a team that had 500 yards of offense against a good Vikings defense. Yep. I mean, that's good. Like, they got to find a way to at least make that a close game.
Kirk Cousins is, I think, like 5th or 6th in passing.
I mean, we're 3 missed field goals away from beating the Saints, or just one, just needed to make one of those, right? And you beat the Saints, and you could easily beat the Chargers if you didn't turn the ball over 4 times. And yes, a lot of those things are because of the players and the coaching, but a lot of those things can also be easily prevented. They're easily fixable. So when you play a team like the Raiders in a must-win game, I mean,
we're going to look a lot better.
But that's exactly why we're saying that's how it should go. And if it doesn't go that way,
issues.
I mean, we're past the point of issues. Like, people need to be fired, and it might not. We might not even have to wait to the end of the season. Like, that would be the most embarrassing loss, and the Falcons love losing in embarrassing ways I have seen in quite some time. So we'll see on Monday.